So the developers get together, we figure out who's going to do what, and what the API is going to look like, and who's going to build this part of the class library. When does threat modeling come into play? Before we even start building a class library, before we start thinking about writing code?
It should be intertwined at the same point as the design is being designed. It should be part of that design process. Now, for some products where we introduce threat modeling later in the game, in other words, hey, you've got to do threat modeling, it's done as like a bug hunting exercise. It's done further in the process. But as the next version of that product comes on stream, their threat modeling will be done very early in the design phase. That's the best place to do it, because the design reflects the threats to the system. The next thing is having good tools for checking code as it goes into the code base. So you've got to realize, you first of all educate the person or the people on what's right, what's wrong, and what's expected of them. You have tools that enforce that policy. And so you're checking as code is getting checked in to make sure that no one's entering new defects of that particular kind into the system. Tools and checklists and so on, we don't use as a way of delivering software, secure software. They're done just purely to enforce policy. That's it. If the developer doesn't know what's right and what's wrong, the best tools are not going to save you. You need to do both, and that's what we're doing. We're doing both. The other thing is security push. The whole point of a push is just to find some of those last sort of dangling security bugs. We expect the need for a push over time to dwindle as more of the process bites as it takes hold in the system. But for the short term, they're definitely always going to be there, just to find those the last bugs. Another important part of the process, which is mandatory, is a thing called the final security review, which is we look at the system looking for bugs and asking one question, and that question is this product ready to ship? So there's many parts to this final security review, including looking for bugs, looking for doing code reviews, penetration work on particularly sensitive areas. And we define more sensitive components are driven by the threat model. In other words, which part of the component has the most threats and the most severe threats. Those are the bits that we're going to look at in greater detail during the final security review. We also review any incoming bugs. If the security bug is found now, so why is it found now? Why wasn't it found 12 months ago? Why was this injected into the code base? Did the person who wrote that code, did they know what the issues were, and why did they make that mistake? We also re-review threat models. We go back to the threat models and look at them in light of any new threats that have emerged in the last 6-12 months. To give a good example, in Windows Server 2003, the final security review for Windows Server 2003 was December 2002. There were about 40 of us working on the final security review, and I was in charge of threat models, going back to the threat models and re-reviewing them. We asked the Internet Explorer team to go back to their threat models and think about one scenario, and that was an admin browsing the Internet from a domain controller. What are the threats? Not bugs, not vulnerabilities. If there's bugs or vulnerabilities there, they get fixed. What I mean is, what are the avenues of attack, and what are the potentials for damage? So think about it. What can an admin do on the box? Anything. It's the admin. What's on the Internet? Well, what's not on the Internet? And then if you can compromise a DC, you could potentially take out the entire network. And so we recognized that we had to make changes to IE to reduce the attack surface because of these threats. And so what we did, I'm sure you're aware, is we basically turned off all mobile code support in IE, because that's the big attack vector. And so by default, IE in Windows Server 2003 has no JavaScript enabled, no VB script enabled, no ActiveX controls, no Java applets, and no .NET Framework components. And that's the default out of the box, because the threats are quite severe.
Absolutely.
And so I think the product is much better because of it. And we will continue to do that over time with different products, is reducing the attack surface of our products.
Excellent. Yes, I noticed that in 2003, and a lot of people have complained around me that use it, developers that use it in their office, programming, that have their setup on 2003. They didn't like that.
Right.
But I personally did, because I figured, if it's a server, you don't need to be surfing the Internet on it. Right. End of story.
If it's a real server, it's a production server, NASDAQ.com, you don't need to be browsing the Internet. Absolutely.